British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says better times are ahead for the British economy, even as the country reels under a cost of living crisis and public service strikes. Alongside the promises, Sunak's first big address of 2023 ended up raising big tremors and exposing fissures in the Conservative Party. Sunak put out 5 big promises, from tackling inflation and cutting public debt to a crackdown on illegal migration across the English Channel. Observers termed the address as having the feel of a party conference speech he never gave.
First, we will halve inflation this year to ease the cost of living and give people financial security. Second, we will grow the economy, creating better paid jobs and opportunity right across the country. Third, we will make sure our national debt is falling so that we can secure the future of public services. Fourth, NHS waiting lists will fall and people will get the care they need more quickly. Fifth, we will pass new laws to stop small boats, making sure that if you come to this country illegally, you are detained and swiftly removed.
Sunak's promises come at a time when strikes by paramedics, rail workers and others have hit essential public services. Calls for better pay and working conditions ring out amidst a cost of living crisis. The Prime Minister said he valued the work of the unions and that they had a right to strike, but this had to be balanced with the right of the public to go about their lives.
At a time when we're putting record sums into the NHS and recruiting record numbers of doctors and nurses, healthcare professionals are still unable to deliver the care they want, and patients aren't receiving the care they deserve. So we need to recognise that something has to change.
The Prime Minister also used his speech to indicate the general policy direction of the country, including a new educational policy that would make some form of mathematics compulsory up to the age of 18. With a general election looming in 2 years or less, Sunak repeatedly said he should be held to account for achieving his targets. A direct fallout of Sunak's speech was fissures in the Conservative Party. Coming out into the open, former Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, who is a close ally of Tory heavyweight and former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, hit out in a tweet. She accused Sunak of washing Johnson's legacy down the drain. Dorries specifically pointed at Conservative manifesto pledges, social care reform, online safety and Channel 4 privatisation that have been dumped. She warned it would be impossible to face the electorate given the number of about turns made on Boris Johnson's key agenda. Another Tory leader, former Minister Simon Clarke, a close ally of Liz Truss, also took aim at Sunak, saying there's no point governing with the brakes on. He suggested that the Prime Minister was failing to alight on a bold enough policy agenda. Well, for more on this, we're joined by Renaud Foucault, political analyst and senior lecturer in economics at Lancaster University, joining us live from Lancaster, England, not very far from where I'm from. A pleasure to speak to you today. Let's just talk about the current situation. I mean, these promises made by Rishi Sunak, how realistic are they, given the state of the UK economy?
The 3 first promises, the one on the economy, so cutting the debt, growing the economy and cutting inflation, those are things you would expect to happen. Like the situation is so bad and so dire, and the promises are very, very moderate. So it's just basically hoping the economy to behave in the way that has been predicted by external organizations. The most interesting ones are the 2 last ones. So on the NHS, he really wants to speak to those voters who care about public services, who voted for Boris Johnson and who feel abandoned. He's making a very bold statement. Like, that's one of the main topics people talk about in the street is the fact that the NHS is in a terrible state, that people need to wait for years before seeing a doctor. And he's saying we're going to slash those waiting times. But he's not promising any policy. So there is nothing specific in the policy. You know that the NHS is struggling to actually hire people. It's very difficult. They've, on top of that, problems to hire also because the wages are getting lower and lower as compared to the private sector. The nurses are on strike. It's not offering anything to that, but it's offering a very symbolic objective. How he plans to reach that, no idea. But the fact that he speaks about that maybe might touch that part of the electorate. And the last promise, which I think is also very, very targeted at some voters, is for those voters who used to vote for Nigel Farage and who might be tempted to vote for the far right if any such party runs at the next election, which is to cut the number of small boat crossings in the English Channel. Again, there is no specific policy for that, because the reason why there are so many small boats crossing the channel is because of decades of policies joined with France to make it difficult to cross by other means. So it used to be a time where people would cross on lorries or on trains or even on planes. At the moment, the only way to cross for people who really want to claim asylum in the UK is through small boats. It's not offering any legal route for asylum. So I guess what he wants to do is to put that on the agenda and perhaps offer polarizing, blunt policies such as the Rwanda scheme. The Rwanda scheme is a public relations exercise in which they say, oh, we're going to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. If it happens, it will be a handful of people. It costs hundreds of millions, but symbolically, it divides people. And some people who might be tempted to vote for the far right might see, oh, Sunak is taking us seriously. So I think those two last objectives, you don't have to take too seriously the measurable outcome when he says we're going to slash waiting times or we're going to cut the number of people crossing the channel. What you need to think about is that he's trying to send a message that he cares about those people. And he's a man who is very good at communicating. And I think yesterday he was very good at passing the message that he cares. How he plans to do that? Complete mystery. But I think it's not the plan at the moment. He just wants to show that he cares.
But of course, there's still big divisions in the Conservative Party. Perhaps some people thought that those were behind us with Rishi Sunak taking charge. But again, critics from within his own party have been coming out saying that they're not happy with the direction. And how kind of dangerous and worrying is this for the party ahead of what's expected to be an election in 2024?
There are 2 years before the election, and I guess they are all having a very, very close look at the polls and trying to see if the situation gets better for the Conservative. Clearly, there are a lot of people in the Conservative Party who believe that the only legitimate Prime Minister is Boris Johnson. And it's true that he's the one who was elected, and Johnson was elected on a slogan, get Brexit done. That's been like, it's over, no? Nobody's talking about getting Brexit done anymore, and if anything, Brexit has never been so unpopular. But the personality of Johnson, the character, is what people voted for. Then when Liz Truss came and decided that she had a mandate to cut taxes, and when Sunak comes now and decided that, yes, another mandate, those are just mandates from a very small subset of the British population, the Tory party members. So there will be a lot of infighting within the Conservative Party for as long as they feel threatened, as long as they feel they cannot win the election. Now there are 2 years. So in 2 years, the situation can improve. And at the moment, the polls, they give a huge lead to the opposition Labour Party, but you see that at least Sunak himself is perceived as being competent. More people see him as a good prime minister than the opposition leader Keir Starmer. So you can imagine that if the conjuncture gets better, so if the war in Ukraine somehow Ukraine wins enough to get the situation stabilized, lower energy prices, if the cost of living crisis eases, those are things that are completely out of the control of Sunak. But you can totally imagine that in 1 year and a half time, the economy is booming. There are more jobs everywhere in Europe, that the things are getting better. Then Sunak, being a very policy-free prime minister, might be seen as this competent person who was to stay in charge. So there is a chance for him to win, and in that case, there will be no rebellion within the Conservative Party. If the situation remains that bad, and if the polls continue to be that bad, there might be yet another infighting. So lots of people have this dream of bringing back Boris Johnson. I don't know how realistic this is. There might be other names that are very good at fighting within the party. They are very good at replacing prime ministers. I don't think there is a lot of enthusiasm in the general public for yet another prime minister. But within the Conservative Party, a lot of people are angry. And a lot of people feel betrayed because They've tried every policy direction, so any prime minister would be betraying some form of previous policy.
Thank you, Renaud. Renaud, thank you very much. We're just running out of time there. Renaud Faucard, political analyst and senior lecturer in economics at Lancaster University. Many thank you.